I thought I was marrying the love of my life, until a man I'd never seen before stood up at our wedding and said, "That's my wife." Before we begin, please like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Let's all be internet friends. I wasn't supposed to be at that rooftop party. It was the kind of scene I usually avoided: overpriced drinks, rented furniture, people talking louder than they needed to prove they belonged there. My friend Gavin had begged me to come, said I needed to stop being so focused on work and let myself live a little. I'd planned to make an appearance, stay for 30 minutes, maybe nod through a few conversations and bounce before the overpriced tequila hit my bloodstream. But then I saw her. She was standing just off to the side, tucked near a corner table, sipping a Coke like she had no interest in playing along. No phone out, no fake laugh. Just her, quiet and composed, like the room had already exhausted her and she was just waiting for a reason to leave. I gave her one. She didn't say much at first. Just looked at me with that expression women wear when they've seen too many men try too hard. I told her she looked like she was hiding. She said she just hated small talk. I offered a better conversation and she gave me a slow blink like she didn't believe me but stayed. We talked for 6 hours, about her MBA, about my work in product design, about podcasts, books, the kinds of music that only sound good when you're lying on the floor. We sat near the ledge, feet dangling over the edge of the rooftop, letting the hum of traffic fill the pauses. By the time the party faded, neither of us had looked at our phones. She glanced at the time once and said, "I never stay this long." I told her not to leave yet. She didn't. 3 days later, we had dinner. 2 days after that, she slept over. A week later, we weren't seeing other people. It just happened. No DTR talk, no declarations. Her shampoo was in my shower by the 2nd month. Her laugh came more easily by the 3rd. We moved in together after 8 months. Not because it was convenient, but because we just didn't want to be apart. She didn't do the drama thing. No games, no emotional puzzles, just honesty, sharp and clean. She'd say what she needed with no build-up and no performance, and I learned fast to appreciate it. Loving her felt like stepping into a well-built room, everything where it belonged, everything deliberate. I trusted it, trusted her. When I proposed in Morocco, she didn't gasp or cover her mouth like a scene out of a rom-com. She smiled, steady, certain, said yes before I even finished the question. We planned the wedding together with her running most of the logistics. She didn't want a huge crowd, just her mother, her sister, a few friends. She called it intentional. I called it perfect. We picked the cake, the music, the colors. I remember watching her taste frosting samples, her finger swiping through 3 options, her face serious like it mattered. We spent nights planning like it was a shared project, a partnership we both knew how to manage. She was precise about details, not fussy, just intentional. Every choice had a reason. Every vendor was vetted. Every table setting sketched out in a notebook she carried everywhere for 6 months. She called it her wedding Bible. I called it her second MBA. Sometimes I'd watch her from the doorway while she edited spreadsheets, lips pursed in thought, glasses halfway down her nose. She always looked like she was solving something, even in love. And I loved that about her, how she treated even joy with reverence. She read her vows to me a week before the wedding, not because she had to, but because she wanted to get the nerves out. She stood in our kitchen with the paper shaking slightly in her hand, reading words she'd written like blueprints, clean, careful, layered with intent. There were no clichés, no grand metaphors. Just her voice, soft and strong, saying she loved who I was when no one was looking, that she felt safe in my silence, that I was the first man she didn't have to explain herself to. I didn't say anything when she finished. Just pulled her into me and held her until she whispered, "I hope it all feels like this." The day came, perfect weather, the kind you don't get in October unless someone's watching out for you. She looked unreal walking down the aisle. I felt my chest tighten the second I saw her. Not nerves, not fear, just pressure, like my heart was trying to expand fast enough to fit her in. Her mom sniffled behind me. The officiant gave his warm, rehearsed opening. Then came that part, the one they always include. If anyone here has a reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence. Then, I do. It didn't register at first, not until heads turned, not until I turned too. He was standing near the back, mid-30s, nervous energy, tie askew, one hand shaking, the other already in the air like he was swearing in. His voice cracked halfway through. "That's my wife, well, not legally, but that's my baby mama." I froze, so did everyone else. Gasps spread like a ripple through the rows, one chair tipped. A whispered what the hell behind me. She wouldn't look at me, he kept talking. "I paid her rent for 2 years, he said, voice cracking but loud enough now that everyone could hear. helped with the kid, worked double shifts when she got into grad school. I didn't do everything right, I know that, but I never stopped showing up, never stopped loving her. She stood motionless beside me, bouquet trembling, eyes fixed on some point in the distance, anywhere but my face. She said she couldn't wait anymore, he continued. Said I was never gonna leave my wife, and she was right. I was scared. I stayed longer than I should have. I let her carry too much alone. No one moved, no one whispered now. The silence had shifted. It wasn't shock anymore, it was waiting, watching. Her sister had leaned forward in her chair, hands clutched so tightly her knuckles had gone white. But I did leave, he said. I left 2 months ago for her. For us, and when I told her, she said it was too late, that she'd moved on, that she wasn't doing it again. But he choked, wiped his face with the back of his hand, we still saw each other. She said it was closure. But she kissed me like it wasn't. My chest didn't move, not in anger, not in pain, just stillness, like my body had decided to protect me from feeling anything at all. I turned to her slowly, she didn't flinch. Just stood there, eyes glassy, throat working hard to swallow what wouldn't go down. She still wouldn't look at me. And that was the part that hurt more than the words. Not what he said, but how she didn't deny it, didn't stop him. Didn't correct the narrative. I stepped down from the altar, I didn't say anything. Didn't cause a scene. Just walked past rows of stunned faces through a doorway and out into air that suddenly felt too tight around the edges. I didn't know who followed me out. Someone said my name behind me, but it sounded distant, muffled like it was coming from underwater. I kept walking. Past the garden, past the white chairs lined with baby's breath, past the woman arranging extra favors on a table that would never be used. I stopped when I hit the gravel path near the parking lot and leaned against a tree that didn't know today was supposed to mean something. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't feel them. Couldn't feel anything, really. Not anger. Not heartbreak, just a deep, dull confusion, like the ground had quietly shifted 6 inches left while I wasn't looking. She came out 20 minutes later. I knew it was her by the way the wind caught her veil, trailing behind her like a ghost she was trying to outrun. She walked slowly, heels uneven on stone, eyes red but dry. When she reached me, she didn't speak right away. She just stood there in her dress, looking smaller than she ever had, not because of the fabric. Because of what wasn't being said between us. I didn't plan for it to happen this way, she said finally. I nodded once, not because I accepted it, because I didn't have the words for what I was feeling. I wasn't going to tell you, she admitted. Not because I wanted to lie, because I thought if I ignored it long enough, it would stop being real. I asked him, she said. That part of my life, I thought I'd buried it. I thought I could build something new without bringing the rot with me. She sat down on a low brick wall, the train of her dress pooled at her feet like surrender. I loved you, she said. I still do. I didn't move. But when he left his wife, something broke open. Not because I wanted him, not really. But because I waited so long for him to choose me, and when he finally did, I was already yours. I didn't know how to hold both. I said nothing, there wasn't a response that would have mattered. I didn't sleep with him again out of love, she said. It was grief. I was mourning who I'd been, what I gave. What I lost waiting for someone who only saw me clearly when I was halfway gone. And me, I asked, what was I? She looked up, eyes shining again. You were peace, that's what made it worse. Because I didn't know how to live inside peace without wrecking it. She said she wanted something different, a clean love. A story without history layered under every decision, but part of her still felt like she owed him something, not love. Not loyalty, just a conclusion. And when he showed up, when he finally left the woman he swore he never would, it pulled something out of her that she didn't want to look at. Guilt, maybe, residue. She said it felt like a test, like the universe was asking her, are you sure you're done? Are you sure you've moved on? And for a moment, she wasn't. I didn't mean to lie to you, she said. I just wasn't done lying to myself. She twisted the ring still sitting on her finger, not even noticing she was doing it. The symbol of a promise neither of us had fully stepped into. A symbol that now meant nothing and everything at the same time. You should have told me, I said, not loud, not angry, just steady. I know, she whispered. I brought my family here, my friends. I stood in front of everyone I care about and said I found the love of my life. She didn't defend herself, didn't say I never meant to hurt you, because we were past that. What mattered now wasn't intent, it was impact. I thought you were free, I said, not just single, free. I thought I was too. We sat in silence for a long time after that, her dress still perfect, her makeup slightly cracked at the corners. My jacket wrinkled from where I'd clenched my fists in it without realizing. Eventually she stood up, smoothed the skirt like any of this could still be salvaged. What do you want me to do? I didn't answer because I didn't know. I only knew one thing. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if the person beside me was still haunted by a life they hadn't fully let go. She stayed at her sister's that night. I know because she texted, not to ask if I was okay, not to check in, but to let me know she hadn't gone back to him. Like that was supposed to be a comfort. Like the bar had sunk so low the only thing that mattered now was that she didn't end up in his arms again. I stared at the message for a long time, then turned off my phone. The next morning, the florist called about the leftover centerpieces, said they could donate them or box them for us. I told them to do whatever they wanted. I didn't need 40 vases filled with peonies and eucalyptus to remind me of a day that had no ending. My mom texted asking if I wanted her to come over. I didn't respond. I knew what she'd say, that I deserved better. That I was lucky it happened before the papers were signed, that I dodged something. But none of it felt like a win. It felt like loss not just of a woman, but of an entire future I'd already started living in my head. By the third day, she asked if I wanted to talk again. Just to talk, just to explain more. I said no, not because I didn't still love her. I did, God, I did, but because I couldn't unsee what I'd seen in her face when that man stood up at our wedding. It wasn't shock, it wasn't shame, it was recognition. The kind you only have when someone you loved once reappears and something in you still moves. I wanted to forgive her. I did, I tried. But every time I pictured her, I pictured him too. I imagined them in rooms I'd never seen, saying things I'd never heard, building a history I'd never be able to rewrite. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find a version of our life that didn't feel like it started with me holding second place. People stopped asking what happened after a while. I guess they got tired of not getting a clean answer. Some of them still think it was nerves, that she got cold feet, that we just weren't meant to be, but that's not the truth. The truth is, I loved a woman who was ready to marry me, but not ready to leave her past behind. And maybe she didn't cheat. Maybe she didn't lie in the way people define it. But when you're still emotionally tied to someone else, when you still let them inside your head, or worse, your bed, even after you say yes to someone new, that's not a relationship. That's a rehearsal for one. I replayed the moment in my head more times than I could count. The way the room went silent, the way she froze, the way my world, so carefully constructed and polished over 2 years, cracked in one sentence. I used to think betrayal looked like slammed doors and lipstick on collars. I didn't realize it could look like a woman standing perfectly still, in the dress you watched her pick out, not saying a word to stop a man who called her his in front of 100 people. A few people tried to reach out. Her sister emailed to say she was sorry, that she hadn't known, that she never would have let it go that far if she had. I didn't answer. There wasn't anything to say. I didn't blame her family. I didn't blame the man either, the one who stood up and shattered everything. He looked broken, desperate, like he'd waited too long to act and now he was grasping at air. But what made it worse was how much I could see the truth in his pain. Not just delusion, not just drama, but history. Wait, years. You can't compete with history when it still has a key to her heart. She sent another message a week later. She said she didn't expect me to take her back or even respond. She just wanted to say she was sorry, that she hoped I wouldn't start seeing myself through the lens of her mistakes, that I was still the best man she'd ever loved. I didn't reply, not because I wanted to punish her, but because the version of me that used to believe her had stopped existing the moment she chose silence over truth. I kept the ring for a while, not out of sentimentality, but because I didn't know what else to do with it. It sat in the back of my drawer like a paperweight for a story that didn't finish. Some nights I'd pull it out, hold it in my palm, try to understand how something that once felt so sure could vanish so quietly. She moved cities a few months later. I heard through a friend of a friend. Something about needing space, needing a new job, a new routine. I didn't ask for details, didn't need them. What she was really looking for was a reset, the kind you chase when you realize the person you became in one chapter can't survive in the next. I don't hate her, I hate that I still don't know which parts were real and which parts were just her trying to love me the way she wished she could. Sometimes people ask if I ever saw her again. I didn't, not in person at least. But once late at night I came across a photo of her on someone's feed. It was months later. She was at a baby shower, standing off to the side again, holding a paper plate and smiling at someone out of frame. Her hair was longer. Her expression softer. There was something about the picture that made my chest feel tight, not grief, not anger, just a strange echo of what once felt like mine, and maybe still could have been in another life. One where the timing lined up. One where I never had to learn how much love can be layered with lies too quiet to catch until it's too late. I didn't click on her profile, didn't zoom in. I just stared for a few seconds, then closed the app, because I knew whatever she was now, it wasn't mine to know anymore. That photo wasn't for me. I went to a wedding 3 months after our own imploded. It was my cousin's, intimate, beautiful, filled with small, sincere details. During the vows, I felt something break open in me, not in a painful way, just a release. Like I'd been holding my breath for months without realizing it, and something about hearing two people promise each other things without hesitation reminded me of what I almost had. What I wanted to have. But only if it came without the weight of someone else's unfinished business. My cousin's wife pulled me aside during the reception, said she admired how calm I'd been through everything. That she didn't know the full story, but she'd heard enough to know it must have hurt. I thanked her, smiled politely. I didn't tell her the worst part, that it wasn't the betrayal that gutted me, it was how ordinary it all felt in the end. How pain doesn't always come with fireworks, sometimes it just comes with a long silence and a dress that never got danced in. I kept the invitation box from our wedding. The one we made together with the gold leaf seal and the wax stamp we argued about for a week. I don't know why, maybe to remind myself that it was real, that for a while it was all real even if it ended on a lie. Maybe we both believed in it, or maybe I was the only one who didn't realize love can be sincere and still not be enough to rewrite someone else's ending. I don't check her socials. I don't ask mutual friends about her. I don't hope for closure, because I got mine. It didn't come in a conversation or an apology or some dramatic reunion. It came quietly, in the moment I realized I didn't need to be chosen by someone who kept looking over her shoulder. It's strange how fast people forget the fallout, how quickly everyone moves on once the headlines of your personal disaster stop being interesting. A few weeks after the wedding that wasn't, some friends stopped checking in. Not because they didn't care, they just didn't know what to say anymore. The ones who stayed never asked for details. They let me talk or not talk and just filled the space with whatever I needed: beer, distraction, silence. Gavin came over once with takeout and never brought her up. We sat on my couch watching a documentary about shipwrecks, neither of us saying anything about the irony. Afterward he asked, "So what now?" I didn't have an answer. I think I said something about work, something about getting back into the gym, something about normal. But we both knew there was no normal anymore, just the slow, uneven rebuilding of whatever comes after trust is fractured that deeply. I went back to work 2 days after the wedding. Everyone was quiet. One coworker asked if I needed anything. I told her no. Another left a sticky note on my desk that said, "You don't have to pretend today." I stared at it for a long time before slipping it into the back of my notebook. I never brought it up again, but I kept it. I started going to therapy, something I never thought I'd need. I walked in thinking I'd spend the first session talking about her. I didn't. I talked about me, about how I'd spent years being the dependable one, the predictable one. The man who made plans, solved problems, stayed calm while everything else cracked, and how somehow that steadiness made me the perfect landing spot for someone else's unfinished mess. The therapist asked what I was most afraid of now. I said being chosen for the wrong reasons. She nodded like she already knew. I think she did. I still can't listen to the playlist we made for the wedding. I tried once halfway through a jog, a song came on and I nearly collapsed on the sidewalk. Not from pain, from memory, the sound of her humming it in the kitchen, the way she'd said, "This one feels like us." She was right, it did. I deleted the song the next day, not out of anger, just preservation. Some things aren't meant to be revisited. Some memories are kinder when left untouched. I don't think she was a bad person. I think she was unfinished. And I happened to meet her in the in-between, the place where people still carry shadows, even as they walk into the light. I just didn't realize until it was too late that her light wasn't mine. There was a moment, maybe a week after everything collapsed, when I caught myself reaching for my phone to text her. Not out of forgiveness, not out of longing. Just habit. I had a thought, something about a show we used to watch together, and my brain still defaulted to her. I froze halfway through typing, thumb hovering over her name, then locked the screen and set the phone down like it had burned me. That's what people don't tell you. The worst part isn't the betrayal. It's the echoes, the muscle memory of love that doesn't know how to stop. I started clearing out the apartment a little at a time. There was no official move-out date. Just space slowly reclaiming itself. Her drawer in the bathroom was the last to go. I opened it and stared at the lineup of small things: lip balm, hair ties, that stupid lavender eye mask she used when she couldn't sleep. I closed it without touching anything, walked away, went back an hour later with a bag and emptied it in silence. My mom visited that weekend. She brought groceries and tried to make it feel normal. We ate soup at the kitchen counter like nothing had happened, like my wedding suit wasn't still hanging in the closet next to a dress that never got worn. She didn't press, just said, "You don't have to start over. Just start small." I nodded like I understood, but I didn't. Not yet. It wasn't until a month later, when I bumped into a woman at the grocery store and apologized too quickly, that I realized how much of myself I was still trying to fix for someone else's comfort. I'd become so used to being measured, to walking on eggshells that weren't mine, that even kindness felt suspicious. I didn't ask for the woman's name, I didn't even look back, but that moment stayed with me longer than it should have. Sometimes I wonder what she tells people now, how she explains it. If she says she made a mistake, or if she rewrites it as a story of confusion, of conflicting love, of trying her best. I wonder if she's with him now. If he finally gave her the permanence she kept asking me for. I wonder if he knows she almost married someone else while still mourning him quietly from across the table. But mostly, I wonder if she ever really planned to choose me completely. Or if I was just the soft place she landed after breaking herself trying to be enough for someone who never gave her a real future. It's a strange thing, realizing you weren't the villain or the victim, just the bystander to a storm that wasn't yours until it was. I still think about the cake. We spent almost 2 hours at the bakery, trying samples, pretending to debate flavors we both already agreed on. She picked lemon lavender because it felt clean, like a fresh start. I wanted chocolate but said lemon was fine. I didn't care about the flavor. I cared that she smiled when she tasted it, that she reached over the table to feed me a bite, laughing when I accidentally dropped a crumb on my shirt. It was one of the first times I remember thinking, this woman is going to be the mother of my kids. Something about the way she laughed, it didn't ask anything of me, it just landed softly. After everything, the bakery offered us a refund, said they were sorry for what happened, as if they knew, as if it had spread that far. I declined the money. Told them to donate it. I didn't want a refund for something that once brought joy. I didn't want to monetize the ending. People have told me I'm too forgiving, that I should be angry, that I should have yelled at her in the moment. Demanded answers, made a scene, but that's never been my way. The quiet hurt more. The silence forced her to sit with it, and I knew in the long run that would cut deeper than anything I could have said. There was no screaming match. No last argument, just her absence growing louder and louder in the spaces we used to fill together. I tried dating again. Once, met someone through a friend. She was nice, funny, kind in a way that wasn't performative. We had dinner and for a moment I forgot to feel heavy. But then she asked what happened, not rudely, just curious. I said, long story. She smiled, said, I have time. I didn't answer, changed the subject. Because I realized in that moment I didn't want to share that story again. Didn't want to make it part of my introduction. I wanted to be someone whose life didn't begin with betrayal. She never pressed. But we didn't see each other again after that. Sometimes I wonder if I'm healing too slowly, if I've confused numbness for peace. But then I remember the sound of her voice during our last conversation. How even when she said she loved me, she sounded more sorry than certain. And I think, maybe I'm not broken. Maybe I just finally learned how to stop making excuses for people who only show up halfway. Maybe peace is quiet for a reason. I went back to the venue once, not on purpose. I was driving through that part of town and saw the gates open, the sign out front advertising another couple's names in script across a white board. Different date, different story, same place. I pulled into the lot and parked at the far end out of view. I didn't get out. Just sat there with the engine running, watching a florist carry arrangements inside blush and ivory, not the burnt gold we chose. I wondered if the groom was already in his suit. If the bride was sipping champagne, getting her lashes done. If their day would end with a first dance instead of a man collapsing everything in one sentence. I didn't stay long. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a weight in your chest while you're trying to drive past a place that still knows your name. Sometimes it's a smell, a date, a dress in a store window that looks too much like the one that never made it down the aisle. I donated the suit, I couldn't keep it. I thought about selling it, but the idea of someone else walking into forever in it made my stomach turn. So I dropped it off at a Shelter's Clothing Drive. Folded, clean, tags still inside. I left it with no note, just let it go. She never asked for the dress back. It stayed at her sister's, then disappeared. I imagine she sold it, or burned it, or packed it away in some closet, buried behind other things she didn't want to deal with yet. That's how her grief always looked, tidy, delayed, private. We haven't spoken in almost a year. Sometimes I still check my email, wondering if she ever typed out an apology she never sent. But nothing's there, just receipts. Newsletters, the occasional wedding invite from someone who still believes in the day I almost had. I RSVP yes to most of them. Not because I'm bitter, but because I've learned that witnessing other people's love doesn't diminish mine, or what I hoped for, or what I lost, Once at a wedding in June, I stood beside the groom as he fixed his cufflinks, hands shaking. He said, "What if she changes her mind?" I said, "Then she wasn't yours to begin with." He looked at me like I knew something he didn't. I did, because there's a difference between nerves and uncertainty, between fear and warning. And when someone you love chooses silence when the truth matters most, it isn't to protect you, it's to protect themselves. I see her sometimes in the people I meet. Not in the obvious ways, not her face, not her voice, but in small gestures. The way someone runs their fingers along the rim of a glass while thinking. The pause before they answer a question. The way they tuck their hair behind their ear when they're uncomfortable. And I feel it, that flicker. Not pain, not longing, just a gentle memory of who she was before everything turned. Once, at a networking event, someone asked if I was married. I said no. They asked if I'd ever been close. I said yes. They didn't press. Just nodded like they understood that whatever came next wasn't small talk. I think people expect you to bounce back a certain way, date again, talk about it, turn it into a lesson or a joke, but I didn't want to package it. I didn't want to be the guy with the almost wedding story. I just wanted to be someone who'd loved hard and learned quiet. There's a woman I talk to now. We're not anything yet, maybe we will be, maybe we won't, but she asks good questions, and she listens without waiting for her turn to speak. She doesn't ask for details I'm not ready to give, she just lets me exist. That feels new. One night she asked me if I believed in second chances. I said yes, but not always with the same people. She nodded like she'd been waiting to hear that from someone. Sometimes, healing isn't about finding something new. It's about finally believing that what's coming doesn't have to look anything like what broke you, and that maybe love doesn't need grand gestures or vows under arches to mean something. Maybe it just needs presence. Someone who stays when it's inconvenient, someone who tells the truth when it costs them something. She didn't, but maybe someone else will. There was a moment the night before the wedding, one I didn't think about at the time. She had been quiet while brushing her teeth, staring at the mirror longer than usual. I walked into the bathroom behind her and said something dumb, something about how tomorrow we'd wake up married. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Not fully. I chalked it up to nerves, cold feet. I didn't know then what kind of weight she was still carrying. I didn't know she was walking toward me with one hand behind her back, fingers still clutching something she hadn't let go of. You tell yourself love is enough, that what you build with someone will erase whatever came before. But it doesn't. It just covers it with fresh paint, and if the cracks underneath are deep enough, they'll resurface. Sooner or later. I think she wanted to be ready. I really do. I think she loved me in the way someone loves stability after chaos, like water after fire. But that kind of love isn't fair. It makes you a cure instead of a choice. I didn't want to be a cure. I wanted to be wanted, not needed, desired, not depended on. I wanted to be the person she looked at and saw only me, not the absence of someone else, not the correction of a mistake, just me. That's what makes it hard, not that she cheated, not that she kept it hidden, but that she made me the next thing instead of the thing. You carry that with you, into friendships, into dates, into the way you answer questions. It softens you in the worst places, hardens you in the ones that used to bend. You don't notice it at first. You just stop talking as much. You don't reach out as easily. You hold your excitement like it might explode if anyone looks at it too closely. But one night someone surprises you. She asks, "What do you need from someone?" And your first instinct is to say, "Nothing. I'm fine," but then you stop, you pause, you breathe, and you say honesty even when it's ugly. She nods, not because it's profound, but because it's true. You realize that's the beginning, not of something with her necessarily, but with yourself. The beginning of not apologizing for the way you loved, for how much, for how deeply. The beginning of not blaming yourself for someone else's unfinished heart. I drove past the courthouse once, not long after the non-wedding. There was a couple standing outside, just married, still in their clothes, him in a navy suit, her in a simple white dress that clung to her like happiness. They were laughing. No photographer, no audience. Just two people with matching rings and enough joy between them to make the world feel smaller. I pulled over for a minute and watched through the windshield, not in envy, in curiosity, wondering what it felt like to start something with no ghosts hovering just off frame. No backdoor exits, just yes. I used to think commitment meant endurance, holding on no matter what, forgiving quickly, forgetting efficiently. Now I think commitment is about clarity, seeing someone fully, their past, their flaws, their silences, and still saying I'm all in as long as you are too. She wasn't. I wonder if she ever reached that clarity. If she ever told him the whole truth, not just about what happened with us, but about the ways she folded herself to fit into the love he kept withholding. I wonder if he changed, if he finally learned how to stay when it counted, or if she just convinced herself that what they had was enough. but the wondering gets quieter with time. It doesn't sting. It just lingers like the smell of a candle long after it's burned out. I started writing again, nothing public. Just notes to myself, observations, fragments of feelings that don't quite know where to land yet. It helps. Not to make sense of it all, but to remember that I still have a voice that belongs only to me. One entry just said, "She left a version of me behind that I'm not going back for." And that felt right, not cruel, not bitter, just clean. Sometimes people ask what I'm looking for now. I don't list qualities, I don't talk about checkboxes. I say one thing, someone who tells the truth early, not because I need perfection, but because I know now how much damage silence can do when it masquerades as mercy. She emailed me once. It came late, almost a year after the wedding. The subject line was just my name. I stared at it for 5 minutes before opening it. Part of me thought it would be some dramatic confession, an unraveling of all the things she never got to say. But it wasn't long. It was 4 paragraphs, measured, careful, like everything else she ever did. She said she wasn't writing to ask for anything, that she didn't expect a reply, she just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for making her feel safe, for giving her a glimpse of what love without conditions looked like. She said she still thinks about Morocco, about the time I bought her that stupid sun hat she didn't need, just because she smiled at it for too long in the market. She said I made her feel held, not owned, not owed, just held. Then she said sorry, not just for what she did, but for how she let me carry the full weight of it. For how she froze at the altar instead of stepping forward to say, stop. For letting someone else do the damage while she stood silently in a dress we picked out together. She ended it like this. I hope you found someone who tells you the truth the first time. You deserve that kind of peace. I'm still learning how to. I didn't reply, not because I didn't believe her, but because I knew it was for her, not for me. Closure isn't something you owe back. I sat with it for a while, let the words settle, then archived the message and went on with my day. That night I called a woman I'd been seeing, the one who asked good questions, the one who didn't pry. We'd kept things simple, soft, careful. I told her I'd like to see her again. She said she'd like that too. No games, no wait, just forward. It didn't erase the past. It didn't rewrite the ending. But it felt like a small door opening. And this time no one else was holding the key. The next time I saw a wedding dress, it didn't sting. It was in a storefront window downtown, lace, fitted, elegant in the way simplicity always is. I stopped walking, not because I missed her, but because for the first time I didn't. I didn't see her in the fabric. Didn't imagine the weight of the moment. Didn't hear that voice from the back of the room crashing down over a ceremony that never finished. I just saw a dress, beautiful, untouched, not mine. That's how you know you're healing, not because you forget, but because the remembering doesn't wreck you anymore. I think I used to equate grief with love. That the more it hurt, the more it must have meant. But it's not true. Sometimes the deepest loves leave behind the softest quiet. The kind that doesn't ache, just exists, like a closed chapter you don't revisit but respect. I still believe in marriage. That surprises people. I still believe in planning a future, in showing up early. In baking someone's favorite cookies just because. I just don't believe in guessing games anymore, or decoding silences, or pretending that almost true love is close enough. There's someone I see now, not every day, not in a rush, but steady. She brings me books I didn't know I needed. She listens when I ramble, doesn't flinch when I go quiet. She asks questions gently, and never asks twice if I'm not ready to answer. She hasn't said, I love you, and neither have I, but we sit together in the kind of comfort that doesn't need filling. The other night she looked at me and said, you don't try to impress me. I smiled, I don't feel like I have to. She nodded, that's rare. Maybe it is, maybe this whole thing is, but it's not borrowed. It's not built on someone else's ashes. It's just mine, and for now, that's enough. I saw Gavin again recently. We met for lunch at a spot we used to go to before everything, back when I still thought life could be planned like a wedding menu. He showed up late, still terrible with time, but somehow always forgiven for it. He asked how I was, not in that surface-level way people do when they expect you to say fine. He really wanted to know. I told him I was okay. Not great, not broken, just okay. He nodded like that made sense. Said he ran into her once at a bookstore of all places. Said she looked good. Said she asked about me but didn't press. He didn't offer much. Just told her I was doing fine. I thanked him for that. He said it wasn't for her, it was for me. That felt like something I hadn't realized I needed to hear. We talked about other things after that. His new job. His maybe serious girlfriend. The people who'd moved away since the wedding fell apart. But even as the conversation shifted, I felt something settle in me, something like closure, only quieter. Less theatrical, more lived in. After lunch, we hugged like brothers who knew too much about each other's mistakes. He clapped my shoulder once, then said, "You're not who you were." I asked, "Better or worse?" He smirked, "Realer." That word stayed with me. Because I don't know if I'm healed. I don't know if I ever will be in the way people want you to be, wrapped up, tied off, repackaged into someone who can love again without flinching. But I know I'm more honest. I don't say I'm fine when I'm not. I don't pretend peace when I'm anxious. And I don't confuse comfort with safety anymore. I used to do that, assume that just because someone made you feel needed, it meant they valued you. But need isn't love, it's hunger. And I was starving for truth, not just affection. I don't bring up the wedding much. People stopped asking. Time does that. It softens the edges, makes memory feel like someone else's life you just happened to pass through. But sometimes in the quiet, when I'm driving or making coffee or folding laundry, I remember that day. That pause, that voice, and her silence. Not the moment itself, but the weight of it. And I think, if I could go back, I'd still love her, just not blindly. The last time I went through our photos, I didn't flinch. Not because it didn't matter anymore, but because I'd finally accepted that it did, and it always would, just in a different way. The album was still in my cloud storage. I hadn't opened it since the week before the wedding. There were pictures from Morocco, the rooftop where we met, our first apartment, boxes in the background, smiles that weren't posed. We looked happy, and for a while I didn't delete them. I just moved them to a folder called Before. Because that's what they were, not lies, not fiction, just before. Before I knew what she hadn't told me. Before I learned how much love can live beside secrecy. Before I realized silence, when repeated long enough, becomes its own kind of betrayal. I sat there for a while with the photos. Let them be what they were. Proof of a time, not a future. That same night I got a text from the woman I'm seeing now. Simple, just a photo of her cat curled up on a copy of the book I lent her. No miss you, no thinking of you. But I felt both in the gesture. I smiled and texted back. No hesitation. No hesitation feels new. We met for dinner later that week. She asked how my day was. I told her about a meeting, a stupid joke my coworker made, the overpriced coffee I'd spilled on my shirt. She laughed, not because it was funny, because it was real. That's what I notice now. Not grand moments, but the small ones that don't require pretending. The space where I don't have to be charming or careful or useful, just present. After dinner, we sat in her car for a while, music low. Streetlights blinking across the dashboard. She said she didn't want to rush anything, that she liked the pace, that she liked me. I didn't need her to say more, because peace doesn't beg to be noticed, it just stays. Sometimes I wonder what I'll tell my future self about all of this. Not just the wedding, the woman, the silence that came after, but everything it changed. How it reshaped the way I see love, not as a grand gesture or a perfect moment, but as a choice made over and over again, even when no one's watching. I think I'll tell him this: you didn't lose, you learned. You learned that love without transparency is decoration. That showing up isn't just about being present, it's about being honest. That someone can say yes to you with their mouth and still say maybe with their heart. You learned that the right person doesn't make you wonder if you're asking for too much. They make you wonder why you ever accepted so little. You learned that sometimes the person you were ready to give everything to was only ever meant to teach you how to finally give something to yourself. And maybe, most importantly, you learned to forgive. Not her, not entirely, but yourself. For missing the signs, for believing the best, for loving without question. I don't know where she is now, I don't need to, I hope she's okay. I hope she's found peace, or at least stopped chasing chaos that looks like comfort. As for me, I'm okay too. More than okay most days. I'm building something slower now. With someone who doesn't need saving, with someone who holds my name like it's a full sentence, not a placeholder. And when people ask, what happened to you? I just smile and say, I stopped mistaking silence for stability. Then I go home to a place that's warm, to someone who knocks before entering my heart, and I finally sleep fully. Alone sometimes, but never lonely. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. One love.